On Friday, U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell met with China's foreign minister. They both spoke with the press afterwards for about 10 minutes.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry we're running late, but we've had an excellent set of discussions which ran over because they were so comprehensive. It's a pleasure to once again meet with my colleague from Beijing. This is one of several times we've met in recent months, and we covered the full range of issues that affect the relationship between our two countries. Especially, we talked about, as you might expect, the president's upcoming visit to Shanghai and Beijing. We also discussed counterterrorism activity in light of the recent events here in Washington and New York. The minister told me a very moving story about a Chinese family who had come to visit their children here in this country and were killed in the plane that crashed into the Pentagon. And he met with those children yesterday. And it just shows how this is an international crisis. And it all has to do with the loss of innocent humanity. And so we agreed to cooperate in this campaign against terrorism. I won't cover all the different issues. The minister may wish to talk about one or two more. In the interest of time, I'm anxious to get the minister over to the White House for his meeting with Dr. Rice and with the president. But Mr. Minister, it's a great pleasure again to welcome you here in the United States.
女士们、先生们，今天我同国务卿先生的会谈是成功的，而且是十分有益的、建设性的。我们谈到了很多问题，刚才国务卿先生都提到了。我想呢，强调两点。第一点，双方都认为即将实现的布什总统阁下对中国的访问，包括在上海和北京即将举行的中美两国元首的重要会晤，意义重大深远。中方相信，通过布什总统的这次访华，两国最高领导人的会晤，一定会为今后中美关系长期的正常健康发展，为今后中美关系的不断改善做出贡献。第二点，中美双方在反恐领域当中已经开始了合作，而且这方面的合作将会继续下去。我们在反恐的问题上态度立场是一贯的、明确的。我们坚决反对，而且强烈谴责恐怖主义的一切的罪恶行径。我们反对国际上的各种形式的所有的恐怖主义的活动。我们双方将会在这方面进行更好的合作。谢谢大家。
Ladies and gentlemen, today my talks with Secretary Powell were useful, constructive, and successful. Our talks covered many issues, many of which the Secretary has already briefly touched upon. For my part, I would like to emphasize the following 2 points. Firstly, both sides agree that the upcoming visit by President Bush to China and the important meetings between the two presidents will exert a significant and far-reaching impact on China-US relations. The Chinese side believes that the president's visit and the meeting between top leaders will make contributions to continue the long-term development of our relations in a normal, constructive, and normal and healthy fashion, as well as continued improvement of our relations in the future. Secondly, both sides have already started our cooperation on the anti-terrorism field, and such cooperation will continue into the future. Our attitude on the question of terrorism has always been clear-cut and consistent. We firmly oppose and strongly condemn all forms of terrorism in all their evil acts, and both sides agree to carry out even better cooperation on this question in the future. Thank you.
The minister has to leave for the White House. I'll come back for just a moment if you want me to. Yes. Yes, sir.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman earlier this week made some statements that seem to indicate that China is looking for pro quo, their support for the anti-terrorist activity in exchange for some sort of agreement on Taiwan where American support would diminish somewhat.
No, there was no suggestion of a quid pro quo. In fact, both sides recognize that this is a threat to both countries. They have their terrorism problems, and there are terrorism problems here in the United States, so there was absolutely no discussion of a quid pro quo.
Mr. Secretary, how can China be especially helpful to the United States, given its geography?
It has influence in that region. It has knowledge and information. It has intelligence that might be of help to us. And our counterterrorism experts will be getting together next week to explore every way in which the two sides can cooperate.
Secretary Jiaxuan is going to be in Iran, I believe, today. You've had conversations on the last day with your British colleagues. What message have you asked the British to pass on, or what message would you like them to pass on to Iran?
Well, we did talk to the Prime Minister about Foreign Minister Straw's visit to Iran. We've also had other communications from Iran through other channels. And as I've said previously, we're anxious to explore whatever opportunities for cooperation there might be in the fight against all forms of terrorism, not just one kind of terrorism. But I think it's best that I let Foreign Minister Straw deliver whatever message he chooses to deliver after our conversation rather than discuss it here.
A new page in U.S.-Iranian relations?
Foreign Minister Tang expressed China's explicit support on U.S. military action in that area, Afghanistan and Bin
I made the point to the Foreign Minister that we would be looking at a complete campaign that would involve going after finances, information, intelligence, law enforcement, and might have a military component. But we did not get into those any details of a military component, nor did I ask the Chinese government what their reaction might be, or nor did they suggest to me any participation. It just didn't come up, military cooperation.
Mr. Secretary, what will it mean specifically what will it mean specifically for, as the President says, the United States will pursue those countries that harbor and aid terrorism, and specifically what would that mean for those states that are already designated as sponsors of terrorism by the State Department?
We have designated those as sponsors of terrorism, and they are subject to a variety of sanctions, so that is one way of pursuing them. And you notice the President said who continue to do this. Perhaps these states will now come to their senses that it is not in their interest, now that the entire international community is mobilized, it is not in their interest to continue acting in this way, because they will risk further isolation and increasing pressure if they participate in such activities, and hopefully the message will get through and they'll start to change past patterns of behavior. Thank you. I've got to go.
Senators met today in their respective party conferences to discuss legislation to assist the airline industry, among other issues. Shortly before noon, Majority Leader Tom Daschle and Minority Leader Trent Lott emerged to give reporters an update on negotiations